Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel, and if you are returning, thank you as always for being here. I appreciate you more than you know. Really excited. Today is our last fall video of the year, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. All right, this is a large 2-foot, 24-inch round from the Home Depot that I've had in my stash for a while. I gave it just a quick sand down, just to make sure it was nice and smooth. And then I was starting to kind of figure out how I wanted to work this. The gather is something I picked up at the Dollar Tree some time ago. And I am using my antique Waverly wax to just put a stripe down the center of my wood round. Now you could cover it completely, but I'm going to be applying something else to it. So, and I didn't know if it would adhere to the wax as well, so I left it. This is the pumpkin by Waverly that I coated the gather sign with. And now from Dollar Tree, this is vinyl. And obviously it's a buffalo check or gingham, whatever you'd like to call it. And I am going to not use a vinyl cutter with it. I am instead going to be using it on this wood round. I saw something not too long ago that inspired me to do this, but just cutting it down to size. And I have not actually tried the Dollar Tree vinyl in my vinyl cutter yet. I've heard a lot about how it's, so thin that the blades will go through it. Maybe the washi tape setting works well, is what I've heard. So I still have to try that. But at any rate, for this project, we don't need a vinyl cutter. So just repurposing the vinyl in a different way. I'm using the wood grain here to try and line this up and make it even for the bottom piece. And then I'm going to come in and trim it off. Now, this wood round, it's not a straight edge on the sides. It's like a beveled edge. So it's kind of curved. It does have a little bit of an edge to it, but then it rounds out. I don't know how else to explain it other than what I've just described, but it makes it a little challenging, let's just say, to trim this off. I thought I was being smart and I put my self-healing mat under there. I was like, oh, I'll, try and use my X-OXO knife and trim it off this way, just using the edge of the round. But because of the shape of the edges, it was challenging. I'll just say that. Now I'm going to preserve the rest of my vinyl there that I just trimmed off. I put the backing back on it because I did have quite a bit of it that I had trimmed away, and I figured I might be able to use it for something else in the future. Who knows? So this was where I decided to just come in freehand with the X-OXO knife, and that sounds harder than it probably was because, as I mentioned, it does have a little bit of an edge to it there. So I was literally just kind of cutting along that edge and using that as a guide. Was it perfect? No. Can you tell unless you get right up on it? No. So I thought, that was the best way for me to get that cleaned up. So now I was coming in with my second piece for the other side, using my ruler to try and make sure it's lined up. I do have the backing off of this now. I just wasn't pressing it down until I was ready to commit. As you all know, I tend to be very visual, and so I like to kind of see how things are. And yeah, this method that I was using here, it just wasn't working though. So finally I did realize that I needed to do something else. So I set that aside for a moment and I used my special ruler here and I marked off, I think it was at about 8.5 inches, if I recall correctly. I filmed these projects about 3 weeks ago, you guys, and then I got really, really busy with travel for my day job and I didn't have time to edit. So I'm a little bit behind here and trying to remember exactly what I did. So bear with me as I describe these projects. But went ahead and marked off a few spots so I could make sure that this was lined up and even all the way across. And then I did the same thing that I did with the other. And I'm preserving my vinyl again. You can see the amount of vinyl that I had left. So I was happy that I was able to put that back on its backing and save it for later. So here I'm just counting the number of squares. I did have one extra row at at the top, and here's my wood glue. But I had an extra row at the top, and I intentionally left the larger section of the buffalo check at the top because of the embellishments that I'm going to be putting up there. So I'm using a little bit of wood glue here. It looks like a lot on camera. I promise you, I was being judicious with it. You don't want to have too much or it will ooze out and get all over your project. So I was using it really sparingly and just making sure that I had a sufficient amount on there at the same time that was going to help it adhere to the wood. Now I'm just measuring it off and kind of making sure that it's where it needs to be. I'm going to nudge it here a little bit, I think, just to make sure, yep, just to make sure that everything is nice and lined up and straight. Checking out the top as well. And once I was satisfied with it, I let it set aside to dry. So now this is one of my new Kirkland ribbons that I pulled out. And I thought this was the one I wanted to use, but as I was looking at it, it was a little too shiny for what I had in mind for this. So I pulled out a different, Kirkland ribbon from a prior year, and I just felt like this one went a little bit better. So here I am checking them out again, but I've ultimately decided on the one that looked a little bit more like burlap, a little more rustic looking. I only did 2 loops. I just looped them around each other, cutting that off, and then I'm going to be cutting another piece that I will tie around the center. And I apologize in advance because I think I end up going a little out of frame here, but I know you guys have probably seen me do these bows a million times. I do have a bow tutorial video that I can link in my description box if that's of interest to you, so you can feel free to check that out. But essentially, I created 2 loops on either side, and I'm tying it in the middle. And your bow will get wonky when you do this. You just need to keep in mind that you're going to have an opportunity to fluff out those loops and it'll all be well in the end. So just be patient as you work with it. And again, I'm sorry that I'm out of frame here. But here you can see I'm just fluffing up those loops. Just don't panic when your bow goes all kind of crazy because it will when you first start doing it. So here I'm trying to figure out if I wanted it centered or on the left. I did decide I wanted it on the left. Used a little bit of hot glue to secure that there. And now I'm just getting the tails, figuring out how I want those set as well. So I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue to get those set where I want them. And I found that it peels really quick off of the vinyl. So if you set that down and you don't like it, you can peel it right back up again. So that's good or bad. Now these are faux leather leaves that I had found at the Dollar Tree. And they came in 2 different sizes. I only found them in this orange color. Perhaps other Dollar Trees have them in different shades. I don't know. But this is what I had found. And I thought that they would be really sweet on this project. So using just a little bit of hot glue on the tips of the leaves, on the stems, that's the word I'm looking for, of the leaves, and tucking that in under the ribbon where you can't really see it. So these last 2 leaves, the stems are a little bit more visible, but I'm going to be adding some other elements in just a minute, so they will not be visible either. So here you can see I'm bringing in, I believe this is mini mum little pieces of a pick from the Dollar Tree that I had pulled apart and securing those in there. And again, I always stick stuff in to see how I like it, and then I'll pull it out and glue it because I don't know. I have to see it before I commit. It's just the way that I am. So sticking other things in there, gluing them down, just using glue on the stems themselves to try to ensure that it gets as hidden as possible. Once I had that the way I wanted it, and I probably should have done this before I did the bow and all of that, but it's my creative process. These are D-hook ring things that I got off of Amazon. I've seen my friend Sammy from Unicorn Dust Designs use these a lot. This is the first time I used them. They were super easy to use. I just screwed them right in with my little drill. And now this is wired not burlap. What is that? Wired jute cord. That's what I was trying to say. This is also from the Dollar Tree, and I am just wrapping it through the hooks and then around itself to secure it because this wood round is very heavy. That's why I am using the D rings on this one. And yeah, I squashed my thing, but fluff it up. Let me know what you think. DIY number 2. All right, this little truck is from the Dollar Tree as well. I'm going to remove the little hanger that came with it, and I'm going to fill in those holes with some hot glue. Now you could use, spackle. I think it's spackle, wood putty, whatever you want to use. I decided to use hot glue. Yeah, because it was easier for me. I was being lazy, I suppose, but using black on the tires. This is my home decor black chalk paint. And then on the hubcaps, I guess you would call them, I'm going to be using white. Just kind of, I had the white wall tires kind of in mind. I suppose I could have done those silver, but I did them white. Now the hot glue had cooled off, so I'm just using my Dollar Tree razor blade to cut away the excess that was sticking out and making sure that that was smooth. Some pumpkin chalk paint by Waverly on the pumpkins there, and now I'm using crimson for the truck itself. I think this is so sweet. This, I believe, is moss chalk paint that I'm using. I believe that is also by Waverly. It's either Waverly or Home Decor. All of my chalk paint is Waverly and Home Decor for this video, so hopefully that helps. But this is just some silver that was a plaid paint. And now I am pulling out this box. Believe it or not, this wooden box was trash. It came from a warehouse at a place where my husband used to work, and he had grabbed a bunch of them for me because they literally were going to go in the garbage. They were part of packaging. So I was really happy to have them. I'm giving it a really good coat of the antique Waverly wax all over. Now this little Hello Autumn, I'm going to paint with the pumpkin chalk paint by Waverly. This came in a pack, I think, of 6 little cutouts from the Dollar Tree. Once everything is dry, I'm going to line it up on my box here. Again, using just a little bit of wood glue because I don't want things oozing out. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. I have not glued down the truck yet. I just had it placed there so I could make sure I had my Hello Autumn where I wanted it. You could see I do have some glue coming out there. So I just grabbed a dry brush, paintbrush, and I'm using that to clean up the wood glue there. And then using a little bit more glue on the truck. Obviously, when you've got a larger surface, you can use more glue. And so just wanted to make sure that I had that, appropriately covered. Again, though, you want to be careful, especially around the edges, that you don't have too much glue on there because it will start oozing out. So I just made sure I had that all lined up. And then I was ready to stuff my box. I just used a bunch of grocery bags because I didn't want to use my fun filler for this whole thing, right? So just grocery bags to get that filled up. And then this is a Dollar Tree hula skirt that I'm using as raffia. So I just pulled it. I'm sorry, I'm out of frame again, but I literally just undid the knot on the end of the twine that was holding the skirt together and slid all of the raffia strands off of the twine. So now I'm just tucking it inside the box until I get it the way that I want it. And this is going to serve, making it a little bit more messy. It was too neat for me. So this is going to serve as a bed for my little pumpkins, but you could put anything in here, anything that you care to add in here. Just deciding which pumpkins I want. And this is all done. Let me know what you think. DIY number 3. All right, this little wicked sign is from the Dollar Tree. I also have a leftover remnant from a pick I've been pulling apart for a while now, showing you ocean and crimson chalk paints that I mixed together. I also added in a little bit of pool because I wanted to get a purple color and it was too dark, so I added the pool chalk paint to lighten that up a little bit. Now I've got my sunny porch. I'm painting the little moon, obviously. That's what I'm doing because you can see that that's what I'm doing. And then I am going to use my black for my little witch's hat. And so getting that all coated. And once I had that done, I'm going to just use some brown on the broomstick. Now that broomstick is ultimately going to be completely covered up, but I did want it painted just in case any of it showed. Now I wasn't super thrilled with the sunny porch. I mean, it's a beautiful yellow color, but for the moon, I wanted something a little bit more. So I came in with my metallic gold by Plaid, and I'll show that to you in just a second. But this is a metallic gold, and I used it not just on the moon, but I'm using it on the hat right now, also just putting a band on my little witch's hat. Just being super careful to keep it nice, and here it is. So it's the Folk Art by Plaid, it's the metallic gold. And now I'm going to use my little broom down at the bottom to give this a little more texture. I'm just kind of pulling it apart a little bit, and not literally, but kind of spreading the broom part. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm using some hot glue now to secure it down. I'm moving quickly because I don't want the glue to dry before I can get this down on here. I do work in my basement where it's a little bit cooler, so my glue tends to dry a little faster. All right, so I have a couple of different kinds of not sparkle, what is that? Glitter, that stuff. And my Mod Podge. I am putting down a pretty generous amount of Mod Podge, working in small sections here because I don't want it to dry before I can get the glitter on it. But this is an onyx glitter by Arteza, and I thought it was so cool because it almost looked a little purple to me, but it was onyx, like a black color. So I went ahead and set that down, let it sit there to dry while I did the other part, added the glitter on again. And once it had a moment to dry, I went ahead and knocked off the excess onto my parchment paper. And then I was able to, once I had this all cleaned up, I'm just using a dry brush again to knock off any of the excess glitter that might have landed where I didn't want it. But I'm going to be able to put all of that glitter right back in its container. And you can see over to the top right, I accidentally spilled glitter all over my table. I was able to salvage a lot of it, but I totally knocked over the container while I was doing what I was doing. And yeah. So I am now Mod Podging the moon as well, and this is a glow in the dark glitter by Arteza. This all came in a pack that I have of something like 64 different kinds of glitter. Just a lot of fun. So I used the glow in the dark glitter for the moon. I thought that would be a nice little touch, and doing the same thing, just knocking off the excess, and then I'll be setting it aside to dry once I have it all kind of cleaned up here. And once it's all dry, I can reattach the little hanger. This is the same one that it came with that I took off of it before I started painting everything. And then we are going to be all set and good to go. I think this is super cute, but let me know what you think. And now it's time for a shout out timeout. Cute Kathy, these are adorable. Great job. And beautiful Valerie, these are such beautiful autumn decor items. And wow, Cheryl, I was blown away by this that you created based on something that I had done. And adorable Grammy Sagmo, I love the little shelf sitter. And sweet Jamie, fall is one of my favorite seasons, you guys. I just can't get enough. But I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, Dollar Tree pumpkins and a Dollar Tree napkin. So this is the first time I've seen the all white pumpkins at my Dollar Tree. I'm going to be Mod Podging it with this napkin. So I'm going to pull it apart, and then I'm going to be grabbing my, what do you call that? A water brush? I think it's called a water brush. It's basically a paintbrush that has a hollow handle that you can fill with water. So I'm going to be using this to trace around the design elements on the napkin so that I can tear them out. Now, if you have not done anything like this before, the reason I am tearing it rather than cutting it is because when you Mod Podge napkins or other things, different types of papers, if you have a torn edge, it tends to blend more with the background. If you cut it, it creates kind of a hard line that is much more visible to the eye. So that is the reason that I am tearing it. And when you use the water on it, it actually makes it much easier to tear, and it gives you a little bit more control as well. So once I had all of my little sunflowers torn out of the napkin and I was ready to go, I took my Mod Podge, and I think this was the matte Mod Podge. It doesn't matter what kind, it just depends on what kind of look you're going for. I'm pretty sure that this was my matte Mod Podge, but I'm going to give it a good coat in one area, wherever it is I'm going to start applying my napkin, and then I'm going to, and obviously I'm giving it a pretty generous coat of the Mod Podge here, but then I'm going to go ahead and lay down my piece of napkin, and then I'm going to coat over the napkin, and I'm using my brush to press the napkin down onto the glue that was already on the pumpkin, and then also clearly to apply additional glue to seal it in. And it did wrinkle on me a little bit here and there, but it's really due to the shape of the pumpkin and the curves and all of that. That does not bother me. If that's something that bothers you and you want to make sure that you don't have any wrinkles, my recommendation would be to just work with smaller images, right? So the smaller your little pieces of your imagery, the less wrinkles you're going to get, because they can be manipulated around curves more easily. You could also alternatively put slits in your design before you start adhering it, and that will also help to allow it to lay a little bit flatter. So once I had all of my designs on there, I just gave the entire pumpkin a good coat of Mod Podge to make sure everything was sealed in. And then I set it aside to dry. Now I'm taking the stems off of my orange and black pumpkins. That black one did not want to come off, but that's okay. That's not going to be hidden. So I went ahead and I painted. I know it's already black, but I'm painting it anyway. And I'm using the pumpkin paint on the orange pumpkin. And the reason I did this, I mean, these are styrofoam, you guys, and they look like styrofoam pumpkins. So I just wanted to fancy them up a little bit and give them, a little bit more oomph. So this is my moss chalk paint. This is a candlestick from the Dollar Tree, as well as, I'm not sure if that's a candle holder or a vase, but it's also from the Dollar Tree. I've had these in my stash for a while, and I'm painting the inside of them. I've started doing a lot of that with glass, and I thought, you know what, I wanted to try that with a candlestick too and see how it turned out. And I thought it was really cool. So obviously my pumpkins are all the same size. If you do a topiary and you'd like to make them different sizes, that's generally my preference, but I still thought it would be cute, and these were the types of pumpkins that I had to work with. So that's what I'm doing. Now, I used clearly hot glue on this. I don't know what I was thinking. I was being lazy, but look how cool the paint looks with that. Hot glue does not work well with glass. If it's just for like a short-term hold while something else is drying, like your E6000 or whatever, great. But you're going to see very soon that I ended up having to pull out my E6000 because the hot glue is not going to hold. But I've got my other Mod Podged pumpkin here, and I'm going to dress up the stem because this is going to be my top pumpkin. So I'm using my wired jute cord again, and I am just wrapping it around and around the stem, and I'm using some hot glue here and there where needed to keep it from sliding up the stem. And once I got it to the top, I left a little bit of a tail, actually a significant tail, and I just finished it off there. And then I kind of twirled it around like a pea's tail in the end. Right there, I just trimmed, it was starting to unravel a little bit, so I trimmed it off again with my wire cutters and just added a little bit of hot glue. It looked like I was applying a lot of hot glue. I wasn't squeezing the trigger on it. I was just using the little drippies that were coming off of the gun because I only wanted a little bit on there, so that's why it looked the way it did. So there's my top pumpkin. And I am going to go ahead and start putting this together. Those pumpkins are not sealed at all yet. This is my floral foam that I picked up from Joann's. I think it's a set of 6 of these, and I think it was like $5, whereas at Dollar Tree they're $1 each. So this is actually a better deal at Joann's. So I shoved my little piece of floral foam in there and just making sure that my pumpkin is going to rest on there the way it needs to, and just pressed it down a little bit more until I had it the way that I wanted it. Now this is just raffia that I am tucking down inside of here. It's from the Dollar Tree as well. I was trying to see if maybe I could just tuck the whole thing down in there and have a little nest for the pumpkin to sit on. Yeah, it didn't quite work out. And I think that's where I just popped the glue on my glass vase / Kindle holder. Yep, there it goes. So I'm like, this isn't working. Let me see if I can figure this out. Peeling the hot glue off of my candlestick, and I pulled out my E6000. I'm using that on every other little edge because it's like an octagon there. So I think it's an octagon, but anyway, I used E6000 and then also some hot glue for that temporary hold, and I went ahead and re-adhered that. So now I'm back in business, using a little bit less of the raffia. I finally ended up just cutting it into little pieces and tucking it in around the floral foam here. You can see what I'm doing now, and that definitely worked out better for me. So I'm just cutting a bunch of pieces, sticking it in. Now, the majority of the floral foam is going to be hidden by the pumpkin, so I'm not so worried about that. I want stuff kind of sticking out from it, if that makes sense. So I'm now taking some of the Dollar Tree fall leaves. These are in this really fun kind of blue color, but then I also have some orange, and I've got some florals that I'm going to be sticking in. And you can create this however you would like, whatever makes your heart happy. Crafting is all about enjoying what you're creating. So if you like different colors or different shapes or whatever, have at it. It's all up to you. So I don't know if you saw, I had a skewer that I stuck down into the black pumpkin, and then I pressed my orange pumpkin down onto it, and then I trimmed up some of the raffia that was sticking out and just used some hot glue to secure that a little bit better. And now I'm going to be putting my Mod Podged pumpkin on top and securing that in the same manner and dressing it up a little bit more. Let me know what you think. DIY number 5. All right, this is a cute little owl from the Dollar Tree and my antique wax. Somebody shared with me that Sammy from Unicorn Dust Designs had been using antique wax on things like this. I had painted one recently, but it was different, and it was from Walmart, and I had painted it, and they said, maybe try the wax. So I understand that Sammy uses the antique wax and then also the white wax. I don't have white wax. I only have the clear wax. So I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. But I went ahead, and I don't know, maybe I needed a little figurine with more little nooks and crannies and crevices. This little guy didn't have a lot of detail, so that might be part of it. I do think he turned out really cute. He ended up looking like stone to me. But I'm essentially using a baby wipe to apply the antique wax, and again, new baby wipe to apply the clear wax. And I did go ahead, knowing that it was clear, I did go ahead and do that thinking it might lighten him up in some areas, even though it wasn't white. So once he was all dry, I went ahead and took what I think one of my sweet subscribers recently shared with me that this was bittersweet. I think that's what I think that's what this is called. I'm not sure, but I do think it's super cute, and just putting a little bit of an embellishment on his little hat to give him a little something extra. But let me know what you think of this little guy too. DIY number 6. All right, this is another Dollar Tree laser cutout wood piece, and this is wood pile. These are from the Hobby Lobby, 6 pieces for $12.99, so a little over $2 a piece. I thought that was a great price. I think these are, I want to say they're either 10 or 12-inch rounds. Now, this is not pumpkin. This was pumpkin that I had added some white to. It was like the last bit of pumpkin chalk paint that I had, and I had added some white into it to make a lighter color at one point, and I just decided to hold on to it. So I'm using that to coat the entire wood round. This is going to be my background for my laser cutout. Making sure I got all the edges. And now while that's drying, I'm going to use my antique wax again on the frame part of this laser cutout and just work my way around the entire perimeter. Using a baby wipe again and just making sure I've got that coated. And then I'm going to come in with my black chalk paint by Home Decor and just making sure I'm real careful, clean edges there where the design is meeting up with the frame, and just making sure I'm getting that all covered and coated in my black. Once everything was dry, I am ready to put it together. I love the way that the black pops off of the orange. I think that's so fun. But again, little teeny tiny bit of wood glue. I'm barely using any wood glue here, you guys. Just enough to make sure that it's going to be able to adhere on all parts of the design. I am going to center it, but a little bit off, so a little bit towards the bottom, because I do want to add a bow to the top of it. So that's why it's a little bit, there's a little bit more space at the top. That was done intentionally. And so I do have a little glue scooching out. I'm going to clean that up again. And then while it was going to dry, I needed something heavy to put on it. So I just grabbed my drill and stuck that on it to keep it, yeah. All right, so now I am creating a bow, and as I said earlier in the video, I'm sure you guys have seen me create bows 1,000 times. If you have not and you'd like to see my bow tutorial, that'll be linked in my description box. I did start to go and notch this one, and then I thought better of it because I remembered, because that ribbon is so sheer in the middle, as soon as I notch it, it loses its ability to stand up. It's like that center sheer section is not strong enough to support the bow. So I opted not to notch this one. And I used a pipe cleaner to tie it off in the middle. I have 6 loops on either side, so a total of 12. And I am just pulling the loops apart and twisting them the ways that I want them to just get it nice and full and fluffy and looking right to my eye. The more you fluff, the better the bow, right? So it just takes a little bit of patience. So don't give up on your bows. You can make a bow. I promise you, you can. It is not that hard. You just have to be patient and fluff it up and just pull the loops the way that you want them to go to get it nice and full and done. So I did trim off the ends of the pipe cleaner. You can see one of them sitting there, and using some hot glue to secure this down to my design. I was thinking afterwards I should have put the hook on first. Are you seeing a pattern form here? So yeah, I just made do. So I'm going to use, this is very light, you guys. So I'm going to use one of the little pieces of pipe cleaner, and there goes my bow. But because I did not wait for it to cool, but just using one of the pieces of pipe cleaner there to, I'm a hot mess, you guys. Hot glue and hot mess. I think that's somebody's channel name. So, but Yeah. Yeah. But at any rate, I just used a good amount of hot glue to secure that. I reattached my bow, I fluffed it up again, and then all was well. Here I am fluffing up the bow, making sure it's secure. All good. But let me know what you think of this one. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed the projects. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up. Remember to leave me a comment. Just say hello or let me know what was your favorite. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.